And another big transport story, actually, because overnight London has become the world's largest pollution charging area after the Ultra Low Emission Zone, known as ULEZ, was expanded across the entire capital. Now, the Mayor of London has introduced the scheme to improve air quality, but critics say the benefits don't outweigh the financial impact. Here's our transport correspondent, Katie Austin.
These were some of the first vehicles to enter the expanded ultra-low emission zone. A charge of £12.50 now applies to drive older, more polluting vehicles in any London borough. Yesterday, where I'm stood would have been just on the boundary of ULEZ. Today, it's not. It covers a much wider area. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, and clean air campaigners have insisted that it's a necessary step to help cut air pollution and improve public health. But the expansion has faced criticism, including for the financial impact on people and businesses. Enfield in North London is in the zone for the first time.
We've had to change both our cars, but if it's going to help the environment, then I think that's a good thing.
We've still got the old model of car, so it's not ULEZ compliant. That's going to be £12.50 every day. But I'm going to have to make either a lot of changes and start walking. I mean, I take my son to school, I go and visit my elderly mum.
It doesn't sound a lot, but it is when you have to pay that every day. Because like I say, my grandson's school, my family, where they live, they all live over this area.
Destinations including Heathrow Airport and Wembley Stadium are now within ULEZ. This car dealer, a 20-minute drive outside the M25, has noticed a trend.
We've seen a large number of our customers that are currently driving non-compliant vehicles, feeling it a necessity because we're very close to the expansion zone here. But compliant vehicles are standing strong in terms of price, and actually the availability of compliant vehicles is becoming less and less as well.
Londoners can apply for up to £2,000 to scrap a non-compliant car. Some councils which border London are refusing to put up signs warning drivers they're approaching the zone.
I'm not going to condone it by putting the Mayor's signs, his ULEZ signs, on Hertfordshire land and or cameras. I'm not going to do that.
I think clean air is a human right, not a privilege.
The London Mayor has continued to say widening the charging zone was a difficult decision, but the right one. A growing number of clean air zones have sprung up around the country. How best to improve air quality without hitting people too hard in the wallet has become a hot political topic. After months of debate, the big ULEZ expansion has now arrived. Katie Austin.
Hello, this is Breakfast with John Kay and Sally Nugent.
Morning, everybody. Just after 6:30, and we're going to look now at London's ultra-low emission zone, ULEZ, which overnight has been expanded and now includes the whole of the capital.
Ben is in Sutton in South London for us this morning, in the zone. He's been looking at the details. Morning, Ben.
Yeah, good morning. You can see over my shoulder one of the signs there that tells you very clearly that the zone is now in force. And you can also see of the strong local opposition. Look, this graffiti here on this electrical junction box. And this is also the area where the Royal Marsden Cancer Hospital is based. It's one of the important locations that's now within the zone. Also within the zone, Heathrow Airport and Wembley Stadium. Now, we should say that ULEZ is nothing new. The scheme has been in place in a small area in central London since 2019. In 2021, it was then expanded as far as the north and south circular roads, and it's now been expanded even further to cover all London boroughs, so the whole of Greater London, in some places going out as far as the M25. Now, if you have a car that doesn't meet certain emission standards, you have to pay a £12.50 daily charge. That generally applies to older, more polluting vehicles. There is a scrappage scheme for people who live in London. If their car doesn't meet the standards, you can get up to £2,000 to scrap your old car and replace it with a new one that does comply. There's a bit more available if you have a minibus or a van. The fund in total is worth £160 million. It's on a first-come, first-served basis, and we're told that 13,000 applications have been approved already. The Mayor of London says this expansion of the scheme is to improve air quality and reduce health problems, but there is strong opposition from some quarters. 5 Conservative-led councils launched a legal challenge to try and block the expansion. Sutton was not among the councils that joined that legal bid. I should say that legal challenge actually failed. Sutton wasn't involved in that legal challenge, but it has been strongly vocal against the scheme. Let's speak to the council leader, the Lib Dem council leader, Ruth Dombey. Ruth, the scheme is meant to improve the air quality that will benefit the people you represent. Why are you so strongly opposed to it?
So there seems to be some doubt about the science. Some of the scientists are saying it's not as clear, but I'm not a scientist. I'm going to stick to what I know. The mayor needs to come here, needs to understand the level of anger that people are expressing, not just here in Sutton, but across the whole of Outer London. He really doesn't understand how Outer London works. Surrey is literally just across the road there and round the corner. We're standing near a cancer hospital. Cancer patients coming to this hospital from all over London and all over the country are going to be fined if their cars aren't compliant. I've had breast cancer twice. This hospital has saved my life twice. And the idea that cancer patients are going to be fined is just extraordinary. It's fundamentally unfair on people that can't afford to change their cars, on people who do shift work and have to drive, on people who are coming for business.
But for those who are struggling to replace the cars, there is the scrappage scheme that does provide support, up to £2,000 to scrap a non-compliant car.
And it's been really difficult to apply for that scheme. I think it was just a week ago. The mayor has finally extended it so that all Londoners can apply. You only get £2,000 and the eligibility is quite difficult. So all those blue badge holders that have non-compliant cars are not going to be able to use their cars anymore.
Just on the point about the Royal Marsden Cancer Hospital, is there not a possible solution where an exemption could be made for patients travelling there rather than, say, scrap the whole expansion for the sake of access to the hospital? Could some solution, compromise, not be found, do you think?
Ben, we've been asking the mayor to come and talk to us for over a year now. We've been saying you don't understand Outer London, you're not listening. Come and talk to us. Come and think about how we can apply a scheme that works for everyone and is fair, because this scheme, the way it's been implemented, is fundamentally unfair.
OK. You mentioned the cancer hospital. I want to bring in Dan, who... Dan, you take your daughter there for treatment, I understand. How will the scheme affect you?
Well, it's bad enough having an invite to the Royal Marsden in the first place. It's a place where you have to come, right? But look what they've done here. They've made it such that even if you were to find a way to navigate around the camera network, they're catching you right here for your £12.50 a day charge, right at the entrance and right at the exit. And I just don't understand how anyone can actually choose to actually think that this is a great idea.
And you use your work van to do that journey.
Yeah.
Could you not replace it and use the scrappage scheme?
No chance. No chance.
Why not?
So first of all, the van is worth more than, or should have been worth more than what the scrappage scheme wants to give me. Okay, the second-hand market for non-compliant vehicles has fallen through the floor. So I either make the loss at that point, or I just suck it up and pay the £12.50.
In which case, what are you going to do?
I'm going to have to suck it up. My daughter needs to come here. I've got no choice. Like thousands of others.
OK. Dan, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Ruth Dombey, leader of the council here in Sutton, thank you as well. And I should say, the charge applies whether or not you live in London. If you're driving in the zone and your car is non-compliant, you will have to pay that £12.50 daily charge. If you're not sure whether your car's compliant, there is a checker on the TfL Transport for London website. I did it myself yesterday. Put your registration plate in and it will tell you whether or not your car qualifies and whether or not you have to pay that daily charge.
OK, Ben, hello, welcome back. Breakfast this Tuesday morning with Sally Nugent and John Kay. And we're talking again about ULEZ, because this morning, from now on, it's going to cost motorists with older vehicles more to drive anywhere in London as the whole city becomes the world's largest ultra-low emission zone. Now, the original ULEZ area was just the very centre of the city. There you go, in green. It only applied there when it first came in 3 years ago. Then in 2021, it expanded to what's called Inner London. That's basically the area around the north and south circular ring roads. But today, look at the size of it. It increases once more to cover Outer London as well, which means all 32 London boroughs are now inside. Why is it being expanded? Well, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, we're going to speak to him in a moment, he says in all London boroughs, air pollution far exceeds limits recommended by the World Health Organization, which can severely affect people with conditions like asthma and heart conditions. Now, most scientific studies show that clean air zones reduce air pollution. 3 years after London's first zone was introduced, pollutant levels next to the roadside reduced by an estimated 46%. But the science is disputed. And what does all this mean in practical terms in the meantime? Or generally, to be compliant, a petrol vehicle needs to be registered after 2005 or a diesel vehicle after September 2015. If your vehicle is registered before these dates, you will be charged from now on £12.50 to enter the zone for most vehicles. Sally.
Thanks very much, John. Well, we are joined now live on the programme by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Morning to you, Mr Khan. I've heard you say previously that this expansion was a very difficult decision to take. Tell me why you struggled with it.
Well, good morning. It's just worth just explaining the reason why I took this difficult but vital decision, the right one, to expand the ULEZ. So from today, 5 million more Londoners will be breathing cleaner air. And that's because of the evidence in relation to the consequences of air pollution. As you've said earlier today, around 4,000 premature deaths a year in our city, but also children with stunted lungs forever caused by air pollution. A whole host of health issues for adults, from asthma to cancer, dementia to heart disease. But we also know the evidence shows that the ULEZ does work in central London. As you said, almost 50% reduction in pollutants. But also we saw a third fewer children being admitted to hospital with air pollution related illnesses when we expanded it to inner London, a 21% reduction in pollutants. So children going to 1,400 schools now breathing clean air. But we've seen in outer London no improvements of the levels we've seen in central and inner London, but also the 10 boroughs with the largest number of premature deaths are in outer London. 24 out of 30 of the GP practices with the largest number of patients with respiratory issues in outer London. But it was difficult because I recognise we're going through a cost of living crisis, and I've been listening. That's why I've announced over the course of the last 8 months the biggest scrappage scheme our country's seen to support low-income families, to support those who are disabled, to support those micro businesses employing less than 10 people, to support charities. But over the course of the last year, expanding that scheme, so every child in London who's on benefit, their families receive support. And earlier on this month, I announced every person in London with a non-compliant vehicle, a non-compliant car, motorbike, a business with a van, a charity with a minibus receives support.
I don't think there are many people watching this who would think that we don't need clean air, we don't need cleaner air. Everybody wants cleaner air, don't they? But we've just had Mark Harper on the programme just a few minutes ago, and he said this is quite simply about making more money.
Yeah, let me deal with that. I mean, I just bumped into Mark Harper as he was leaving the studio, and I think he made a couple of factual errors, which is really worth me clarifying. If this was about making money, I would have acceded to the demand from the government to expand the congestion charge much wider than it currently is. That would have been a cash grab, but I said no. If it was a cash grab, as the government's saying, just to raise money, I'd have acceded to their demand to expand the ULEZ without proper consultation and a proper scrappage scheme. This is about helping our air be cleaner. And in a couple of years' time, TfL have predicted there will be no additional money made because of the number of non-compliant vehicles. But every penny net made is used to reinvest in public transport, improving buses in outer London, improving public transport in our city. And here's the irony of ironies. It was this government that published air quality directives, the right thing to do, requiring cities to clean up their air. It was this government that has supported clean air zones around the country, the right thing to do in Bristol, in Birmingham, in Bath. But for some reason, they refuse to support London and are trying to make, party political gain out of a public health policy.
And are you confident? Can you back up the claims, the scientific claims that you've just said to us? I know you mentioned that number, didn't you? 4,000 extra early deaths per year. That number, I believe, is in fact from an Imperial College study that was funded by your own group, paid £800,000 to do that research. Are you confident those numbers are accurate?
This same air quality team of experts was commissioned by the government, brackets, paid for by the government, to do a report. And this report for the government showed that around the country there are between 28,000 and 36,000 premature deaths, whether it's King's College, whether it's Imperial College, whether it's Queen Mary's University, whether it's the Chief Medical Officer, whether it's the World Health Organization. They all agree that air pollution is a public health crisis. We now have a really effective policy to reduce air pollution. It's shown to be effective in central London and inner London. But I think clean air is a right, not a privilege. What about outer London? Why shouldn't they breathe clean air? Why should they carry on dying prematurely in numbers that could be reversed? And the key thing is this. We need to make sure that we do other things as well. So that's why in London we have more electric buses than any city in Western Europe. In London we have more rapid charging points than any city in Western Europe. In London, more than a third of the country's charging points are in our great city. We've planted almost 500,000 trees in London and are rewild in our city. So the clean air zone in London, the expansion of ULEZ, is an integral part of our policies to address air pollution, to address the climate emergency, but also to make sure we address the issue of social injustice. Those least likely to own a car suffer the worst consequences.
I'm just going to move you on for a moment because I don't know if you saw, we've had a couple of people already talking on the programme this morning about the situation with their cars. As far as you are aware, how many cars, what percentage of cars are non-compliant at the moment?
So in inner London, where the ULEZ currently exists, around 97% of vehicles seen driving on an average day are already compliant.
Sorry, 97%?
In inner London,
yep,
on an average day. In outer London, where the ULEZ is expanded to, on an average day, 90% of cars seen driving are compliant. What I've done, though, is notwithstanding that, announced an additional £50 million towards our scrappage scheme, the biggest in the country. So every single person in London who may have a non-compliant vehicle, by the way, I'd encourage your viewers to check on the TfL Transport for London website whether their vehicle is compliant. But every person in London who may have a non-compliant car, a motorbike, a small business with a van, a charity with a minibus, check whether your vehicle is compliant. If it's not compliant, you can receive financial support from TfL to make that transition. OK,
I'm curious to know what your numbers are, because I know that when the RAC obtained figures from the DVLA earlier this year, they said that nearly 700,000 cars registered in Greater London are non-compliant. That is, in fact, 25%. So this is going to be a significant problem for more people than you are suggesting.
Can I explain the RAC figures, which is basically based upon cars, vans and other vehicles registered in London. Many businesses who have got their headquarters in London register their vehicles in London but drive them around the country. So the figures from the cameras in relation to the numbers of cars seen driving in outer London are more accurate and more up to date. So the first thing is please check whether your vehicles are compliant. As I said, more than likely your vehicle is compliant. If it's not compliant, there's financial support available from City Hall and TfL. And again, I'm imploring the government, rather than playing political knockabout, work with us so more Londoners, more businesses, more charities can receive that financial support.
We know that most people in London, you're talking about the support for people, they could actually only apply for that grant from around 8 days ago. Is that really long enough for people to get organised? So the scheme first opened in January, and the focus in January was to support low-income families, disabled Londoners, micro businesses who employ less than 10 people, and charities. We need to make sure those people can receive support first. And as I said, we've got a finite resource paid for by City Hall without government support. In July, we were able to expand that once we knew those who need help the most could receive support. So every family in London who receives child benefit, that's more than 800,000 families. In outer London, almost 600,000 families could receive support. Once we were confident that they'd receive support, and halfway through the financial year put in more money to the scheme, I was able to announce a policy where every single Londoner is now eligible to apply. I spoke to TfL this morning. They turn around these things within a matter of days. In the last week, there have been, as we predicted,
more than 15,000 applications. I think 14,000 vehicles have already been scrapped. So I'd encourage your viewers, check whether your vehicle is compliant. If it probably is. If it's not, apply for support.
Mayor of London, Sadiq